Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Out of the Groove. Today, I am joined by NASCAR Cup Series driver for Premium Motorsports, Brennan Poole. How's it going today, man? Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk to you. Of course, I've watched your show a few times, so it's kind of cool to be on here and talk a little racing with you.
I appreciate it. Well, I watch you on the racetrack pretty much every week, so we both kind of been spying on each other from afar, it sounds like. But I appreciate you coming on. I thought it was really interesting because I heard recently, was it yesterday or earlier this past week, you did a food drive in my home city, and I guess your home city as well, Houston. Tell me a little bit about that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so the because of all the stuff that's been going on, the city is in desperate need for food. I think they're up, like their need there is like over 150%, 150% more than normal this time of year because of everything that's happened. So I've done some disaster relief with the food bank in Houston before with Hurricane Harvey. So we wanted to continue to try to help them out, especially, it's being, I'm from Houston and got grit my teeth around a lot of the dirt tracks there in the Houston area. So, we got together and tried to see what we could do. And we were able, I feel so fortunate and grateful that I'm in a position that I could donate, 500,000 meals to the city that I grew up in. And so it all worked out really well. And I'm glad that we were able to help out. I got to go on a Facebook Live yesterday or Instagram Live yesterday with the food bank, with the CEO. And he was kind of like showing around the food bank and sort of what they're doing. And, so many volunteers in there sorting things in the bins and getting things organized. So just cool to see, Houston is, everybody pulls together and Houstonians are very passionate about their fellow Houstonians. So I just feel, grateful that I could even help and be a part of giving back to the place that I'm from. So it was cool. And Spartan Mosquito also gave $125,000 worth of mosquito repellent products to the city. It's going to all the veterans in the Houston area. So I'm pretty excited about that and grateful that they could help out my hometown as well too.
Definitely. Well, 500,000 meals, that's pretty incredible. And of course, yeah, all the help with mosquitoes we can get around here this time of year for sure. Well, that's awesome. Well, it's great to have you on the show. And I kind of wanted to take a moment and learn a little bit more about your how you got into racing and how you kind of got started. So you said you were born in California, correct? But you kind of really started racing once you moved to Texas. So I want to ask you kind of what kind of tracks did you race in Texas and what was that scene like growing up?
Well, I'm a first generation racer, similar to your story. My dad didn't watch racing. It's not in my family at all. My dad wanted me to be a golfer, so that didn't turn out too well. I went like the totally other direction. But when I was 2 years old, I'll tell you the story. My dad took me to Walmart for my second birthday to get like a plastic golf set. And when I was there, I got in one of those battery powered Corvettes, like the little like plastic, they're like big wheels,
power
I guess.
wheels things or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my mom, when they were trying to leave, my dad had the plastic golf set, was like, let's go. My mom was like, they couldn't get me out of the car. I was crying. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay in the car. Mom was like, you're going to have to get him this car. I don't know. So I don't know if I credit it back to my mom forcing my dad to give me that car. But at the time, my dad was a manager at a Midas Total Car Care in the Sacramento area. One of the managers there raced shifter carts. And across the street from where he ran his go-kart, they had quarter midgets racing, and he was like, hey, it's something that, maybe you guys would like to do together. He loves driving that Corvette all over the place. You should maybe go watch, check it out. Maybe it's something you want to do. So my dad took me there. I can still remember holding onto the fence and watching them race, and my dad looking down at me and just being like, hey, is this something you want to try? And I think I was 4 at that point, and it was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So I was like, heck yeah, I want to try this. I'm 4 years old. I'm watching all these other kids driving and stuff. I'm like, this looks great. So my dad took me to a dirt track called Capitol in Rio Linda, which is the same track Jeff Gordon started at. Was a big Jeff Gordon fan when he was driving and I was growing up. But I got to drive a car. It was like a school day, so you could see if your kids actually liked to drive the car before you went and bought a race car. So, and man, I loved it. I would get out of the car, run back around, get back in line, get in. You're there, the whole day. So my dad was like, well, okay, maybe this is something he wants to do. So he got me a quarter midget when I turned 5 for my 5th birthday. And we just started pretty much racing ever since. And when we moved to Texas, in the Houston area, there wasn't a lot of quarter midget tracks. There's one in San Antonio and one in Austin. And so for years. My dad would pick me up at school on Friday, and we would drive to San Antonio and stayed with some friends that we had met up there at the quarter midget track, and Pat Kelly, and he would help us set up the car and get ready. We'd park our trailer in his yard up on. I think it's Lake Seguin, I think is what it is, but or Lake Placid, one of them. It's in Seguin, Lake Placid, whatever. But and we would race there and every weekend, and we did that for so long. I started getting older and started to kind of get more into legend cars to the age where I was 12, and so I went to Texas Motor Speedway and raced legend cars there for a long time. And they had a track in Houston Motorsports Park, and they ran legend cars there. So I would go there and race and just kind of travel back and forth between that. I think I went to Wichita Falls and raced legend cars. There were a few places you could run. So, and I did that until I was about 15. And then I got into a dirt modified and raced pretty much all over the place in Texas, whether it was in, Baytown or Houston Raceway Park, Willis. I was on 45 and 105 Speedway off 105 in Texas, and raced a dirt track at Texas Motor Speedway. Lufkin raced there, and just kind of traveled around as I was trying to graduate high school. And I ended up graduating high school early. I did some classes like through the summer one year with Texas Tech, and got all my credits and graduated. And man, like the day I got done with school, I just like loaded up my truck and drove to North Carolina. And I started living with Jamie Yelton in North Carolina. He's like a big late model stock guy at the time. Mm-hmm. And I just lived with him and raced late model stocks. And I won Rookie of the Year in 2009. The next year, I ended up winning 6 races and finished second in the points because I got thrown out one night at Tri-County. So I'm still hurt over that, so I'm going to dive into it. But and then the following year in 2011, we ended up winning the championship in UARA. I think we had 4 wins that year, and I got my first opportunity to drive an ARCA car for Venturini. Billy Venturini was at Hickory in the season opener. I won that race, and literally like the next day he called us and wanted to try to figure out a way for me to run the race. And at that time funding was like super tight for me. My dad had kind of pretty much paid for me to race up until this point, and it was starting to kind of get to the point where my family couldn't really pay to help me much farther. So I had an opportunity to run that ARCA race, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to be able to do after that particular year. And it was at Salem, and first time doing pit stops and everything, and we won the race. So, wow. And that kind of is what gave me the traction to keep going. And we were able to get some more funding and some more help for the following year. And I raced 2012 full time with Venturini, and we won the Speedway Championship and won 2 races, which was a good year. But after that, I kind of didn't really know what was going to happen. I ended up working for Venturini, spotting and driver coaching, and I actually worked and filmed Dartfish for a company that did all the Dartfish for RCR, and at the time I think it was Turner Scott Motorsports, and I was there on race weekends and helping with the ARCA car, and then would stay and film Dartfish and do all the stuff for the trucks, Xfinity, and Cup cars, and I did that for a couple of years. I had a few opportunities to race during that time, and I kept winning some races. We won at Springfield in Michigan in 13, and then 14 was a tough year, but ended up winning Kentucky. And at that time, I got called about a month later from Harry Scott, and he wanted to try to discuss, maybe me driving, a partial schedule that year and split the seat with Larson, and just see what we could go from there. And so we sat down and started figuring things out. And fortunately, funding and stuff kind of came together for me to drive that car. And I ended up racing for him that year and racing for Ganassi 2 years after that. And just kept working and kept trying to get to the Cup level. And I raced trucks for a couple of years after that. Just kind of difficult times trying to stay in the sport and figure out kind of what I was going to do. And after last year, we had a really good season with On Point. We struggled with funding throughout parts of the year and weren't able to run all the races we wanted to. But ultimately led to me having the opportunity to race for Premium this year. And, it's been a pretty humbling experience, humbling journey. And being able to run in your first Daytona 500, man, it's just crazy, man. The whole crowd screaming USA. The president spoke before us, talked to us before the green flag. it's just that's a moment I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And then to come out of there with the top 20 finish 16th in my first ever, it was just a lot of emotions going through to take part and just be a part of history in that race. So it's been one heck of a journey, man, for sure. So I know it's a
Yeah.
long story, so sorry if I told too
No,
much. That's the whole story.
that really is. I think anyone who maybe didn't know had any gaps in your racing career up to this point really got them all filled in. I really appreciate that. I love hearing the journey from drivers, given where they started and how they got. And I know there's every driver. It's always bouncing from team to team. There's always every driver I've talked to about their start. There's always at least one point where they wonder, "Dang, is this it? Do I have enough money? Do I have enough funding? Do I have enough another opportunity after this? Like, is this it?" And I mean, from everyone I've talked to, they've been able to find something after that. But I'm sure that doesn't happen for everybody, for sure. Hearing you talk about racing in Texas too, I'm thinking about just how big Texas is. Driving from Houston to Fort Worth to San, I mean, that people don't realize that's like 4 hours between cities most of the time.
Yeah.
That's a lot of driving, not just in a race car, man. But I appreciate you sharing that.
It was crazy. We had a Suburban and we pulled the race trailer behind it with the quarter midgets. And seriously, yeah, it was like 3.5 hours from my school in the Woodlands to San Antonio. And man, I'm telling you, like every weekend. And then after we'd race Saturday night, sometimes if it went too late, we'd stay there and drive back Sunday. But a lot of times we drove back after the race Saturday night, and we were getting home 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays. And it was just so much driving. So my dad was really helpful in helping me do those things. And I know he didn't always enjoy that part of it, but I think looking back on it now, I'm 29 years old, and we talk about the journey and the things that we've done. And, rushing back, I raced a race in Ohio, a winter nationals over winter break, and we had to drive like 22 hours straight so I could get back in time for school. And it was like, you're going to school, and just like drove like straight through 22 hours straight so I could get back to school. Like I jumped out of the truck and went to class after being in Ohio like 22 hours ago. So,
wow.
We did it. We laugh about those moments, and I wouldn't trade that time with my dad for anything. I learned a lot about discipline and hard work and what it takes to be successful. And what it takes to win races and the mental game and the aspects of the sport. And had a lot of people come into my life through this journey that helped me kind of learn what I needed to learn to make that next jump that made me a better race car driver. So it's been really, when you look back at it, for me, it's just like really humbling. And, I feel grateful that God always opened the right doors for me at the right time. And I think he's still doing that for me. I don't think my journey's over yet, in my racing journey at least. And so I'm just going to keep working and keep fighting. I want to win cup races one day. I want to be in the playoffs. I want to be fighting for championships. And, I believe that I have that ability to do that. And I don't feel like yet I've quite had the right people or around me to be able to do that. I've had really good people around me. I've had good race cars over the years. I've had people that have cared about me. But I feel like my time's still coming. So I'm just working for it,
Always a grind, always looking forward. Yeah, no, I can definitely appreciate that. So I do want to talk a little bit about this season now, kind of the modern day, because these are crazy times we're obviously living in, and even crazier for you because you are a rookie in the Cup Series this year. You mentioned your first Daytona 500. How difficult has it been kind of transitioning into the Cup Series level with that level of competition and the different race cars?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different. The cars drive different, obviously, than the other 3 cars. I'll like at Daytona, I mean, I talked to some other guys about, the handling of the cars and how it was going to change throughout the race. They drive nothing like any of the other cars. It is crazy. Like, I would watch the races before I race the Cup car. And like, man, it's, we all get single file and run against the outside wall for a long portion of the race. And I always wonder, I'm like, I wonder why they're doing that, or maybe they have to do that, or, maybe they're just buying their time and taking it easy, and then things get crazy at the end, trying to really understand why they're doing those things. But until you're in the car and until you're still feeling it and understanding why we race up there, you don't really have that understanding. But it's because we literally, when the tires wear out at Daytona in the middle of a race, there's just no grip. I mean, it is almost impossible to run the bottom and be wide open, right? You just can't do it. You're like, you get in the corner, and maybe some other guys' cars handle better than mine, I don't know, but I would drive into the bottom and try to hold it, and I'm like, oh, like turning right at Daytona and driving up the track. Never experienced that before. Like in a truck and Xfinity car, it's just like
Yeah.
wide open. It's not a lot going on. But the Cup cars, you're driving them, man. It's slick, and the handling does play a big part in it. And so that was eye wide opening, because the first time I tried to make a move on somebody, getting down in the bottom, I think into turn one, I was like, oh, that's not going to work, and I was like holding my breath. So there is a bit of a learning curve there with some things that you think you can do from other cars and stuff that you've been in, but it just doesn't work with the Cup car. But I feel like I've learned the most really these past couple weeks at Darlington. I got to run at Fontana, and we had some car issues there, and we had car issues in Phoenix as well, with the alternator going bad and having to change the battery. We had some really good runs going. I felt like at both of those racetracks we were going to run in the 20s somewhere.
Hmm.
We battled with Suarez at Phoenix the entire race, and he ended up finishing 21st. So even if he did beat me, I think I would have been, I don't know, 22nd, 23rd, somewhere in there, which would have been really good for our team. So we've had good speed for what we have to work with, and the guys have done a really good job. But I really feel like these past two races, getting into race Sunday and then turn around and race Wednesday, I've learned a lot about the race car. And I learned a lot of things about Darlington too. That the races are longer and the tracks change more, and you figure things out. And if you make a mistake, with the races being so long, you make a mistake early, you can kind of recover. And the Sunday in the Cup car, I thought I had a tire going down, and I know there's some other guys that felt like they had tires going down as well too. But I pit because I don't, I'm not going to stay out and take ourselves out of the race. I'm like, better be safe than sorry right now. It's still kind of early in the race. We didn't have a tire going down, but everything worked out. We went 2 laps down, but we got the wave because we just got tires when the caution came out, and then we got the lucky dog the next caution like 30 laps later, and we were right back in the position we were in fighting for before. So just like little things that I'm picking up about the car and feeling things that are different, and it certainly has been fun.
Well, you mentioned those Darlington races, and this video will actually be coming out the day after the Coke 600, so we'll have raced Charlotte by now. But I want to ask you, because this is very different. Obviously, you being a rookie is different, but racing without fans in the stands and the whole process, I want to kind of get your perspective. I've heard drivers talk a little bit about what their day-to-day or their day of race day kind of routine is now, how it's changed. But I want to ask you, kind of from start to finish, from the perspective of a Cup Series driver, what's it like from the time you roll up to the racetrack to the time you actually strap into the car, even the time you get out of the car and the race is over? What is NASCAR having you guys doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'll say about not having the fans there is, it's not like necessarily a basketball arena or a football stadium. Like during the event, we're not feeding off the changing energies of the crowd. But when we do have those few moments, when we're walking to our car or walking to a driver's meeting, or they're in the garage, and you get those few interactions where you get to talk to a couple of fans, sign some stuff, and go on. That does sort of bring some energy to you, and that energy to me is missed, and I'm sure a lot of other guys would agree with me as well too. So I've definitely missed having those brief moments of people pulling for you or wanting the best for you that day, or having something in common with you, like, oh, I'm doing this right now, or I'm from Houston, or I raced in Sacramento at some time, or just there's all kinds of things that are special that I think drivers do take in. We're so focused in concentrating on what we have to do, and I think we are very serious on race days in those moments, and but I think fans recognize that. So even though we may seem like we're just signing something or very serious, it's just because we're in somewhere else. We're about to go battle and do our job. But those moments and those things that are said, I think all the drivers would say that they appreciate them. And so for me, that's something I've missed. But on a day to day, like driving to Darlington so far, we had to get to the racetrack 4 hours ahead of time to go through some, safety checks and screenings to make sure that we're healthy and not, carrying the virus or not showing symptoms of the virus. So I got to Darlington. I had a cooler that Lindsay, my girlfriend, made the sandwiches and like nuts and fruit and all stuff in me so that I could eat before I got in the car, and I drove. I have a Tahoe. I have a 2008 Tahoe, and I put a I have like a Pioneer like sound system thing in it, but it has a screen so I can like play DVDs. So I'm sitting there eating my lunch, and I was like, I don't know, I'm playing watching like Pirates of the Caribbean or something, and I'm just
Just in the parking lot?
yeah, in the parking lot. I'm just sitting there in the parking lot. I can't, you can't go anywhere. And I just sat there for 4 hours and ate lunch. I actually, I love making YouTube videos and vlogging and stuff. And so I actually vlogged like behind the scenes of what that first race was. And I'm doing some behind the scenes for this past Wednesday and for the Coca-Cola 600 and just kind of showing what it's
Awesome.
like. One, not having fans there, but two, like, going through the safety screen. I can't film the actual screening, but like just kind of
Hmm.
what it's like, sitting there and walking out to my car with no fans and interacting with all my crew guys, and they all have face masks on, and just kind of like that little bit different element of that the fans can't see because they're not there. So I'm trying to, at least show that and show a little bit of what I'm going through as I'm sitting in my Tahoe, changing in the back seat and eating my lunch in my car, and just like all the things that are kind of different. And then, when the race is over, drivers, we get out with our helmets on. Our interior guys there with the mask. We take our helmets off, we put the mask on, and we just walk straight to our vehicle. And you're out of there. There's nothing.
Yeah.
You can't like hang out or talk, or they kind of want you to leave and be isolated, which is fine. I appreciate them trying to keep us all safe, but those I do love like talking and breaking down the race with the crew chief and stuff after that. So we're kind of that for me has transitioned more towards which most teams do it on Mondays or Tuesdays after the race, but which we're still doing those things, but it's kind of interesting just having all those discussions of the race after with our crew guys on Monday and Tuesdays at the shop, and then turning around and racing on Wednesday is quick turnaround. So it's definitely been interesting, but I'm just thankful that we can race. Like I've had so much fun being back in the real car. iRacing did a great job through those couple months with the sim racing. That was so much fun. I'm glad I could be a part of those like 3 events at the end there. But driving the car for real is just a lot better.
Yeah, well, it's more fun to watch, I must say. NASCAR's come back in a really big way, even with the Xfinity race the other day. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and I know you're keeping really busy. You mentioned all the quick turnarounds, but you're on the entry list for the truck race this coming week. You're racing more
Yeah.
than just Cup, so how difficult is it for drivers to kind of stay in shape or stay mentally focused when you're racing more frequently than NBA players play games during the season? Like it's pretty frequent racing.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the mental part of it. I think there's a lot of drivers that are in good shape. Through quarantine and through these last couple months, I did a lot of cycling. I think you might be able to tell my farmer's tan there. So a lot of cycling. I love riding my bike in general, but when I started riding my bike, Josh Wise started to get me on the bike many years ago. I think it was 2016, maybe start of 2017. And rather than just like working out in the gym and doing stuff, I started cycling, and that just like made my fitness and how I felt in the car go to like a whole nother level.
Hmm.
And so I've always kind of kept riding the bike. So through quarantine, you couldn't ride in groups, or some of my other friends that cycle and stuff, I couldn't ride with them. So I just rode by myself through my neighborhood. I didn't go out on any roads. I literally was riding 30 miles through my neighborhood, just like around,
Just loops and
yeah, just like going through loops, doing the same things back and forth over and over again, which was kind of boring.
tedious.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and doing it, every other day was like, oh man. And but I kept doing it, and I just, I listened to some podcasts and some stuff, and rode around the neighborhood. But so I did that, and so I felt good. I think anytime you take such a long break for driving the race car, like there are some things that you just don't that you feel in the race car that are really hard to train for. So like, there are a few things, like I got out of the car after the race on this past Sunday, and I think I was like a little bit tired just from maybe using some muscles and stuff that I maybe use in the
Hmm.
car that I don't use all of the time. Even whether you're working out or doing whatever, it's just like little things that you may not work out all the time that you use more driving the car. So like, there were some things where I'm like, okay, maybe I need to work on a few things here to get a little bit stronger rather than just like cycling a whole bunch and doing a few stuff at my house. But I will say Wednesday, even though it was only 311 miles, a little shorter, I felt totally fine and great and back to normal. So 600 miles will be the longest race that I've ever run in my career. I've done 500 before. I feel like an extra 100 for me will be okay, but I do know that extra 100 is going to be a big difference from 500. So I'm hydrating. I'm going to hydrate some today, and get ready for what's going to happen tomorrow for me. But it's just one of those things. It'll be a new experience for me. I'm going to learn stuff about my body, and learn stuff about this particular race. I hear a lot of guys talk about it being almost like two races, because you've got these couple of stages, and then you got a couple more stages at the end of the race. It's 4 stages now. So you're sort of running two separate stages, and the track totally changes. We start during the day and it ends at night, which is something for me at Charlotte I've never done. I've raced races at Charlotte during the day, and I've raced races at Charlotte at night. So I've never kind of transitioned from one to the other, which is going to be something I'm going to learn, and try to stay on top of my race car, and the adjustments that we'll need to make to keep the car up with the track. So a lot of new things for me this weekend. And I get to qualify a cup car for the first time at Charlotte. Never been there in a cup car before, and I got to go qualify at 2:00 tomorrow. So I guess I'm going to hold it wide open until it does something, and hope it sticks, and try to get the best starting spot I can get. So it's going to be an interesting Sunday for me, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, definitely unprecedented times for everyone in the world, but especially also for us here in NASCAR. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us, spending some time, Brennan. We'll be watching for you tomorrow. I guess this will be out, so people already know how y'all did at Charlotte, I suppose. But good perspective, kind of retroactively. But everyone will tune in Tuesday night because you're in the truck race. So tomorrow night, for those of you watching, Brennan, you'll be in the truck race. Well, thanks for coming on, man, and good luck. Good luck these next few weeks.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate the hard work you do on and all your followers and everybody who watch you, and you give some really great insight into the sport. And I love the video you talked about literally a few days ago about the viewership on Sunday, and your points were amazing, and I certainly appreciated them, and I know many others did. So you keep doing your thing. It's been awesome to watch.
I appreciate it. Good luck. We'll be rooting for you.
Thanks, man.